we'll raise this bad boy up and see how well this renders the floor. This might take a little bit longer because there's a lot more materials, but what do we got? But I guarantee you that even this sphere right here took me 1 minute and 15 seconds. So it's going to take me a lot more time to render the scene that I want to render. And I even still have my lighting where I want it. That is just, in essence, what you can do with Blender, and people really underestimate the power of Blender. And consider this, that remember last time this one little sphere, this took me 51 seconds. Remember last time this one little sphere took me 1 minute and 15 seconds, and I have 4 of these spheres on screen with 2, 3, 4 bottoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bottoms on screen. And this took me 50 seconds to render 1 frame. Yeah, that's a long time. But also that all these are baked. And so this took me way shorter to render all these objects than this scene. This scene would have probably took me 5 minutes to render. This is the exact same scene done in Blender Render with the group instances in the right and the in the right layer and the regular in the left. I'm going to render this. It's the exact same scene in Blender Render. Now there's some gray areas, but we can fix these gray areas later. But I don't want to do that in this tutorial because I don't want to drag it out too long. But I'm just saying, in Blender Render, this only took me 1 minute, 1 second. This only took me 1 second to render. So you can actually increase your render times very fast by baking. And that's either in Cycles, Blender Game, Eve, or in Blender Render, as well as Unreal Engine and every other engine you can think of. Baking is the best solution. Group instances increase the speed by far. Baking and group instances are the best solution to everything. So, like for instance, I'll go to my material. This is just an image texture, and that's all it is. And it is baked onto the floor. Now, granted, in a video game, I wouldn't be so low to the floor that I would see the pixels, but from a good distance, maybe a crouch distance, maybe a laying down distance, it's not so bad. And the baking is really much faster for rendering. So that's kind of why I wanted to show this, because there are some people. There's a guy who said, well, it took me 10 minutes. It took me a year to create a 10-minute animation. I was like, what if it only took you a week to create that same animation, or a month, or less than that, less time than that to create that animation? Like, save you the work. And I actually baked this for material too. This is bath tile material that I made, and it's pretty decent. It's not great, but it's decent material. This is just for funsies. It's a rock texture, stuff like that. So we're going to get into baking and cycles. So I'm actually going to delete these, and we'll come back to them in a second. So I'm going to create an object. Obviously, it's going to have no material. It's going to be 100 segments by 75 rings if you want to keep up. And I'm going to do this. This is just for example. Node editor, and I'm going to delete this. Of course, if you do Eve, you're going to automatically get a Principled BSDF. So that's great, actually, because it automatically updates. So let me get a Principled BSDF and throw it into my surface. It's one reason why it might not be rendering as fast as I'd like. More than 17 seconds is what I meant to say. So, but still way faster than just rendering in general. So what I'm going to do for this texture is I'm going to add search a checker texture, and I'm actually going to have 2 of these, so I'm going to shift duplicate to make 2, and then I'm going to add search noise. Briefly, I just wanted to show that baking is an option that is under this menu right here. Secondly, I'm going to skip the making of the sphere process. This is just really basic. But if you want to see how I made the cool looking sphere tile, you want to go to the last 7 minutes of the video. So that's all I wanted to share real quick. Into displacement. There we go. Now we have some normals. Let me just see what we're at. We're at 6 minutes. All right, cool. Now I'm going to bake this. Before I bake this, I'm actually going to change the checker scale to 25. The other checker scale has to be changed to the same one. Now we got this round type of material, almost what it looked like what I did before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my UV image editor. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to unwrap this with a Smart UV project because it is a Smart UV project. So I'm not going to use the bat tile. I'm going to make a new texture. I'm going to call it rockiness. Why not? Rockiness. Doesn't matter. Okay. And now I'm going to go back to my node editor and I'm going to go into add, search, image texture. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just simply going to open my rockiness, which then the option to bake should be in the render folder all the way down, and it should say bake. Before the image texture, there was not an option to bake in Cycles Render. Now there is. I'm going to change this to object mode and bake this. This is going to take me a minute. Oh, actually, fuck. It's fine. I'm baking it. I'm just going to render it separate from the image texture and then show you the difference. So I'm going to pause. So it's baked. We're going to render this. The way I'm going to do this, I'm going to Shift S, section to cursor. No, Shift C, Shift S, section to cursor. And then I'm going to just go ahead and render it. Now, the lighting's going to be off because I rendered it exactly this direction from the light. Whatever. I'll just rotate it and it'll fix the lighting. Pretty sure it will. Whoops. It's rendering in here. Well, oh well. We'll just take it from here. And notice that this is going to take a while, so I'm actually going to pause it, and I'll get the time for you when it's done. So we're currently at 1 minute. This is without baking, by the way. This is without baking. I'm going to do the one that's baked. We're currently at 1 minute 15 seconds. That is a long time for a second. I mean a frame. You generally want to go 30 frames or 60 frames a second. This is a long time for a second, and that took 1 minute and 23 seconds. Alright, let's do the baked. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab my node editor, and I'm simply going to detach my base color, and I'm going to detach my placement, and I should be able, if it baked properly, to have, there it is. But the lighting's off because, like I said, I baked it over here instead of over here, so I'm just going to rotate it by Z real quick. 180 degrees. Nope, maybe it's 90 degrees. Oh, I'm rotating the wrong way. 90 degrees. Boom. Alright, now that it's baked over here, let's render that. With it only hooked up to the image texture, it should render way more quicker. So I can not have to pause this actually. Also, I'm running this under my Bandicam, so it's going to render a little bit slower than normal. This took me 16 seconds to render compared to 1 minute, and also it kind of does look nicer. And let me just share with you a couple other things. This is now baked, so I can put it into real time. And let me just check my timestamp. I'm only going to be on here for a few more minutes. That means I can put it in real time. So let's do that. Let's put it in real time. 3D view. Let's put it in real time real quick. just to give you an example. Alright, and so I'm going to throw it into real time, and because the material is not compatible with Blender Game, it would be compatible with Eve. I'm just going to add a new material. I'm going to get a new texture, the old texture, that I just created, and make sure you save your textures, by the way. And then I'm going to go to, well, it's already on there, but it's not unwrapped. I don't know, maybe I'll be able to play it, might not play. Oh, this is supposed to be in Blender Game, my bad. Play, boom, that's done. I didn't even unwrap it yet, and it's pretty good. And this light is over here. I might raise the light up. And the light is baked onto it as well. So let me just take this light away. Press play. And the light's baked onto it. Also, it still retains its normals. I haven't even unwrapped it yet, so I'm going to go into it and go to Object Edit Mode, Unwrap, Smart UV Project. Okay, I don't know if that's going to change much, but UV Image Editor, I'm just going to take the rendered result out. I'm going to go ahead and get my rockiness texture, and I'm just going to go straight back to rendering this bad boy, and press play, and there it is. It's done. It's completely done. Obviously, because I unwrapped it, I have to add the new texture after adding the material, which will be this one, and the light's baked all over this texture. And that's great, because now I can run it in real time if I wanted to, or I can save me. It only took me 16 seconds. Let me just be clear. When it was 55 seconds, it took me 16 seconds. When it was 1 minute, 15 seconds, it took me 16 seconds. So I highly doubt that when it's 5 minutes to render, it won't take much more than 16 seconds to render when it's baked. And so this is what I'm trying to say, is that what would you rather have, 5 minutes of rendering or 16 seconds of rendering to render virtually the same object? Virtually the same object. And actually, I want to throw this into Blender Render because that'll be kind of cool. Let's see what Blender Render says about this. And I know I don't like Blender Render, but we're gonna do that anyways. And I'm gonna render this because I did create the material. Oh, it's black. It's black because I don't have a light, so I'm actually gonna get my light again. It was a what do we say? It was point light. And I'm just gonna throw it up here. I'm going to throw it over here because that's about where it was, I believe. And I'm going to render that. And boom! It's in Blender Render with all the fucking cycles normals. Possibly. And that only took me a second. Like, not even a second. 0.17. Like, literally 10 times less in Blender Render to get nearly, am I wrong? Am I wrong? To get nearly the same result. Oh yeah, I forgot to go back to materials. 1 sec. 3D view. It's going to still take 16 seconds, by the way. So I'm actually going to go back to my node editor over here. And I'm going to go over here, subtract, add new material's done. And then I'm just going to see about getting that principled. You need the principal BTSD to render the texture. So let me just get my add texture node, search for image texture, and throw it in here, and then get the rockiness, and then render that. And well, honestly, Cycles does have better lighting than Render, but what I was going to say is, if you just wanted to run it in Blender Render, it only took me 0.17 seconds to get basically the same normals, and I could fix the lighting how I wanted to get like Cycles Render, and it still only take me a fraction of the time. So if you wanted to make an animation, you could bake all your animations, and you'd be like, well, cycles takes too long for 16 seconds. I want to do it at 0.17 seconds a frame, which is 0.17 seconds, 17 milliseconds per frame to get that 60 frames per second. You really could do that, and way more effectively. So obviously Cycles Render has better lighting. That's the catch. And here's the deal with baking too, because I said I would share the pros and cons to baking. So let me get my camera back on here. Nah, I'm going to keep it the way it is. The pros and cons to baking is that your lighting is baked into the object. So the pros is that you no longer really have to worry too much about the lighting. So for instance, I like using Unreal, and I don't like building lighting all the time. I don't. I'd rather build it in Blender and throw it into my game. So for instance, I make like space station. I make a space station, and in that space station, like I might, or a lobby, I might have this object in here. I might actually make it a material group instance. I think group instance will so I think it's Shift G. No, Shift A. I forgot how to make it a group instance. Actually, that might be only a Blender game thing. I forgot if it's Control G. No, I just made a group. Yeah, group instance. I'm gonna call it tile. Sphere for even more faster rendering. So let me just take this out of the scene. I could move it to the second layer, and actually I'm going to Control Z that, Control Z, Control Z, keep it at the center. Now I'm going to move it to the second layer. Then what I'm going to do is Shift A to add the group instance, which will be a tile sphere, which showed up over here for some reason. It's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to Shift C to center my stuff, and then I'm going to say section to cursor because we want it at the center. And now I'm going to render that as a group instance, which should save me some time. Maybe not a whole bunch. Maybe I'm wrong. Time, we're at 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds. No, it's about the same amount of time. No, 12 seconds. So I saved myself another virtually 5 seconds. And with instances, and instances are very great because I still get the lighting and stuff, and I actually like that look. I'm not gonna lie. And then I'm gonna go into add a plane. For instance, at this point of the tutorial is basically done. But just for funsies, I'm gonna add a plane with a image texture. So let me get me a principled BSTF, throw it in here, go to surface, add a search for image texture. I have bath tile. I should have had lobby, but whatever. I have bath tile, so I'm actually going to open and find my bath tile, which is in my Unreal Projects Baked Blender bath tile, and open image. I forgot to unwrap it, so I will. It's just a regular unwrap for this one. And then I'm just going to stretch this bad boy out until it's about center of the texture. And also, you know, I could do, like, this is coming from a source, like a light. Why? I don't know. It's not rotating. Whatever. It's point light. That's right. That's why it's not rotating. And press play. I'm sorry, it needs to games. Render. And we have our bath tile. We have this object on top of our bath tile. It's not as flat as I'd like it to be, but you know, I could fix that with the SC. That's not going to fix it. I would have to go into this one to fix it in my group instance, which I can have a lot of these now, wait a minute. Should be able to fix it. Oh, it's rendering, sorry. There we go. And that should have flattened this one out a little bit more, and I can shrink it a little bit more. Also, I can shrink the instance, which is kind of cool, but now it's more flat, like the tile, and it looks like it will match with it. And I can also group instance to tile, which is going to be Control G, and I'm going to add it to the same instance, so then I can move this to the next one, and I forgot how to do that. I think I just click on both of these and Control G, add a group instance, and that should have did it. No? I'm gonna name this tile sphere under tile, which is a really long name. It's unnecessarily long, but it'll still get the job done. And then what I can do from there is just keep duplicating, or I can add array modifiers. So for instance, we know this is a group instance. I could actually, these are two different materials, I could actually join them. So Control J, they're joined now, and then I could Shift G to add, Control G to add a group instance. We'll just call it T underscore S, or a tile under sphere. And now I could go back over here, and I could delete this, and delete this too. And I can, we still got our group instance. And then I can go back over here, Shift A, group instance, tile under T under S, which is tile under sphere. And then I can go back over here and add a array modifier, just to give you the fucking power of Blender, for God's sake. Oh, wrong way. -1. -1. There we go. And let's just 3, and then I could add another modifier, array, and do it like that. And wherever I move this, it's going to move, obviously, the other one. And now, you would think that this would take much longer to render with the, even if it's baked and even if it's array modified. We'll even go back to, it's over the whole grid now, so we'll go back to the camera, and we'll raise this bad boy up and see how well this renders the floor. This might take a little bit longer because there's a lot more materials, but what do we got? But I guarantee you that even this sphere right here took me 1 minute and 15 seconds. So it's going to take me a lot less more time to render the scene that I want to render. And I even still have my lighting where I want it. That is just, in essence, what you can do with Blender, and people really underestimate the power of Blender. And consider this, that, remember last time this one little sphere, this took me 51 seconds. Remember the last time this one little sphere took me 1 minute and 15 seconds, and I have 4 of these spheres on screen with 2, 3, 4 bottoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bottoms on screen. And this took me 50 seconds to render 1 frame. Yeah, that's a long time. But also that all these are baked. And so this took me way shorter to render all these objects then this scene would have probably took me 5 minutes to render, and I just saved myself 1/5 of the time. So that's pretty neat, and that's kind of where I'm going to close. So I wanted to get into baking. This is going to take a little bit of time, maybe, but this was baked in cycles, and basically it is running in real time right now in Blender Game. I could just use Eve, but I didn't feel like it. And I like the 2.79 format. That's why I kept it that way. And it's not. It has all the normals and stuff like that, but this is just an image, really. Like this is just an image texture. That's all this is. So, like for instance, I'll go to my material. This is just an image texture, and that's all it is. And it is baked onto the floor. Now, granted, in a video game, I wouldn't be so low to the floor that I would see the pixels, but from a good distance, maybe a crouch distance, maybe a laying down distance, it's not so bad. And the baking is really much faster for rendering. So that's kind of why I wanted to show this, because there are some people. There's a guy who said, well, it took me 10 minutes. It took me a year to create a 10-minute animation. I was like, what if it only took you a week to create that same animation, or a month, or less than that, less time than that to create that animation? Like, save you the work. And I actually baked this for material too. This is bath tile material that I made, and it's pretty decent. It's not great, but it's decent material. This is just for funsies. It's a rock texture, stuff like that. So we're going to get into baking in cycles. So I'm actually going to delete these, and we'll come back to them in a second. So I'm going to create an object. Obviously, it's going to have no material. It's going to be 100 segments by 75 rings if you want to keep up. And I'm going to do this. This is just for example. Node editor, and I'm going to delete this. Of course, if you do Eve, you're going to automatically get a Principled BSDF. So that's great, actually, because it automatically updates. So let me get a Principled BSDF and throw it into my surface. It's one reason why it might not be rendering as fast as I would like. More than 17 seconds is what I meant to say. So, but still way faster than just rendering in general. So what I'm going to do for this texture is I'm going to add search a checker texture, and I'm actually going to have 2 of these, so I'm going to shift duplicate to make 2, and then I'm going to add search noise. I'm going to shift duplicate to make 2 of these, and then I'm going to have a color ramp, and I'm going to shift D to create 2 of these. Alright, and that's basically all I did. So to create a more complex material, I'm just going to take this noise texture real quick, and I'm going to actually go into material mode, and I'm going to throw it into the factor and into this one. This is actually not my idea. This was another idea that I learned from tutorials in Blender, which is a good way to make noise type of materials. So wait a minute, I'm doing this backwards. I'm going to take the color and throw it into the second one. Then I'm going to take the checker texture. Oh, and I got to get a mixed RGB, which means mixed red, blue, green, if you didn't know. Alright, and then now this is going to go into my base color, which is going to set the motion. Alright, now for my noise, I'm just going to, for the top one, no, I'm going to figure this out real quick. Gray one, I want this one to be blue, and I want this one to be red, just cause. Alright, and I don't like the white on the red, so I'm going to go to my color ramp for the red, which is the second one, and I'm going to change this color to red-ish. Nope, I changed the wrong color. This one's supposed to be white. Sorry. Or am I wrong? No, this one's supposed to be red. I'm wrong. This one's supposed to be red, and there we go. And the white is supposed to be a little bit more red-ish. There we go. And then for the red, I'm going to do 30 by 5. Now, it's not the best rustic material like I just made, so I might actually change this one to black. A little bit more black, and then this one's going to be a little bit more red. It does a better job. For this one, I'm just going to set the scale to 10 so you can see it. And I'm going to set the detail to 10. And now, because you're probably not going to see the normals until I do this, I'm going to set this into displacement. There we go. Now we have some normals. Let me just see what we're at. We're at 6 minutes. All right, cool. Now I'm going to bake this. Before I bake this, I'm actually going to change the checker scale to 25. The other checkered scale has to be changed to the same one. Now we got this round type of material, almost what it looked like what I did before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my UV image editor. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to unwrap this with a Smart UV project because it is a Smart UV project. So I'm not going to use the bat tile. I'm going to make a new texture. I'm going to call it rockiness. Why not? Rockiness. Doesn't matter. Okay. And now I'm going to go back to my node editor, and I'm going to go into add, search, image texture. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just simply going to open my rockiness, which then the option to bake should be in the render folder all the way down, and it should say bake. Before the image